Saygıdeğer konuklar,
Distinguished
ana
guests,
oturum başlamak üzeredir.
our main session
Lütfen yerlerimizi alalım.
is about to begin. Could you please all be seated, ladies and gentlemen?
Değerli konuklar, programımız ulusal ve uluslararası kuruluşlar gözüyle sürdürülebilirlik konulu ana oturum ile devam ediyor.
National and international organizations will be the subject of this session. To preside over the session, I would like to invite member of board from IFEC, Mr. Ayşe Arı Aktuna Boylu, to the microphone, please.
Ve konuşmacılar,
and the speakers will be Public Supervision Institution, Head of Department, Mr. Mehmet Şirin, Capital Markets Organization, Deputy President of Departments, Seçil Kutluca, and TÜRMOP Governing Board Member, Dr. Masum Türker. Yes, microphone is yours.
değerli konuklar,
distinguished guests, standard making boards of IFEC are being represented here with 3 heads of departments. They're going to be with us with their online recorded videos now. Yes, I share them. Thank you very much. 21st Turkish Accountancy Congress is going to be tackled from the perspective of sustainability by various organizations, national and international organizations here. I would like to extend my regards to each and every one of you who are here and who are following us from various organizations. On behalf of myself and my organization, I would like to extend you my best regards. Sustainability issue is a priority issue in agendas of all organizations, as we mentioned in the morning session. Climate change is one of the areas, the primary area, in fact, on which there are agendas. This is a main target, but United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are 17, and this is only one of those goals. So SDGs include health, education, gender equality, natural resources, and life, welfare, equal income, industrial life, and labor life. So environmental, social, and economic areas of sustainability are all covered from different perspectives. So these goals should be regarded as indispensable from one another. When we can reach all these targets all at once, the most favorable definition of SDG will be possible. That is a quality life within a welfare perspective. 17 of those goals, which I've just referred to, is actually a very important target which makes the previous ones possible, and that is coordination. Coordinating means all individuals fulfilling their own responsibilities and making their own contributions, and it also means co-functioning, co-working. So accountancy has a responsibility that falls on its shoulders in that sense, and how it will coordinate and cooperate with the other organizations will be discussed in this session. Accountancy as a profession is providing great support to the formation of ISSB, and other organizations have also carried out similar activities, and all those were gathered under of ISSB. And for sustainability, global basic reporting standards have started to be formed by ISSB, and this has been an important step for our profession at large. We support all these developments, but we also want to fulfill our own individual duty. So we're discussing what we should be doing when it comes to creating standards for sustainability. Now I'd like to give the word to Mr. Tom Sidensman at this point. He's going to talk about what kind of plans and targets they have in their own organization, IAASB, International Audit and Assurance Standards Boards.
To you on behalf of the International Audit and Assurance Standards Board, or the IAASB. I wish I could be there in person. From a personal standpoint, I miss visiting Turkey, a country that I've been on several occasions. I've always been struck by its history and beauty and the warmth of its people. Turkey has long been at the crossroads of the global economy. Being in that position inevitably has driven your unwavering support of high-quality, globally accepted audit and assurance standards. We at the IAASB appreciate your commitment. We also understand that this support very much depends on our ability to respond to the most challenging issues facing the audit and assurance profession. The desire for high-quality and consistent reporting on sustainability offers both the greatest opportunity and challenge for the audit and assurance profession in generations. The profession has long played a key role in driving trust in externally reported financial information. However, capital providers and policymakers are expecting more. In allocated capital, investors increasingly wish to understand the impact of corporate entities on the environment and society. Indeed, the trend from voluntary reporting commitments to mandatory requirements is accelerating. The European Union's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission's proposed climate disclosures are but two important examples in that direction. The establishment of the International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB, is another step in creating globally accepted reporting standards as the basis of sustainability requirements. We at the IAASB expect the drive for added corporate reporting and disclosure on sustainability and climate-related information only to accelerate. I personally believe that the accounting profession has an essential role in building confidence in sustainability reporting. As with financial reporting, the IAASB believes that market participants are best served when financial and other reported information benefits from external assurers, provided by professionals committed to the public interest and the highest ethical standards. For this reason, in the past, the IAASB has devoted significant energy to creating standards to govern assurance of non-financial information. We have a well-established umbrella standard, the International Standard on Assurance Engagements, ISA 3000 revised. We also have subject matter specific standards such as ISA 3410, which deals with greenhouse gas statements. And only last year, we published guidance to help assurance professionals apply our umbrella standard to sustainability and other non-financial assurance engagements. This is a solid foundation to build upon, and it should be the basis for jurisdictions considering new assurance requirements. But our standards setting work has only just begun, and it will likely continue for years to come. We will need an increased level of detail as the reporting requirements evolve. In our recently approved new work plan, we therefore committed to do more to enhance the assurance of sustainability reporting. And our work is now gathering pace. We have dedicated increased board capacity and staff resources to the assurance of sustainability and ESG reporting. In January, we began our important behind-the-scenes work, gathering information and conducted research using these new dedicated resources. And just in June, we agreed to develop a complete assurance solution with greater specificity than ISA 3000. Our expectation is to have a proposal ready for comment in a year's time. This is where we need the help of the profession. We know that our work must include a willingness to collaborate with key stakeholders throughout the world, including standard setters, regulators, and the accountancy communities in Turkey and elsewhere. For this reason, we are so pleased that the Union of Chambers of Certified Public Accountants of Turkey has organized this Congress today. I look forward to hearing from you on the actions that the IAASB should prioritize to support higher quality assurance standards. And once the standards are in place, we expect the profession to live up to the highest standards of professionalism and ethics and faithfully applying our standards. We are conscious that the demand for enhanced requirements and guidance is very high. It is why we are positioning the IAASB to act in a coordinated, responsive, and urgent manner. Thank you.
Tom
Seidenstein, actually, when we invited him to this Congress first, he was very excited, but unfortunately, since he could not have an appropriate program, he couldn't make it here, as Tom has mentioned. In fact, there are applicable assurance requirements, but in parallel to reporting burden, this has to be improved. These criteria have to be improved. Of course, these are global standards, and they should be in compliance with the national standards, or national developments should, or applications should be designed, that's for sure. Now, public supervision Board's representative Mehmet Şirin will come to the microphone now, and he will talk about Turkish sustainability reporting standards, because the authority for this has been given to his organization. So what kind of activities are planned in Turkey, and what kind of support is provided, is planned to be given to international organizations in this sense? This will be tackled by our next speaker. Microphone is yours, sir. Distinguished members of our profession, distinguished participants, I'd like to extend you my deepest respects and regards. In this presentation, I will talk about how we could come to this point as an organization, and why is public supervision an important factor of sustainability. I will go back to the past a little bit, and will try to summarize the process that we have experienced. Of course, I am, as an individual, trying to do the same thing, because sustainability is a sea, a vast sea to swim in, and it interests many organizations, institutions, companies, businesses, and individuals. In fact, everybody is a part of sustainability as a concept. Let's go back to the past a little. Actually, this is not a new subject, and it's not a very old subject either, but its past is dating back to 1970s. The limit of growth was the name of a report that was first published in Club of Rome. It wasn't considered that much. Then with Brundtland report, it became more interesting for the others. Maybe you can find this map once you look into the internet. It's not that difficult. But what I'm trying to summarize here is that there is a tendency from volunteering to compulsion. The government regulations are at the very last level of this diagram. In 2014, EU has become a part of this. The intervention of the governments is at the very last phase. So everything started with volunteerism in the beginning, mainly in businesses working in some problematic areas, have started to come up with disclosures just to be accountable. And then as per sectors, a joint structure has come into being to do the same thing, and then some NGOs, organizations have started to come up with their own standards. Maybe there are tens of reporting frameworks, but the most important ones globally are mentioned here. GRE is the one which is most referred to, that when it comes to sustainability reporting. In terms of sizable is another one in terms of sectors. International reporting is important in the long run. ISSP's activities will be affected mainly by this structure, I believe. And the most significant regulations were initiated by EU in 2014. United Nations development goals should be referred to at this point as well, because in all sustainability reports, the reference point is always the United Nations SDGs. Maybe there is not a direct link, but always in the background what we have is United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Therefore, one of the most important documents we can talk about is this one. Of course, the game changer right now is the European Union in terms of its leadership, and the most strict regulations are actually coming from the European Union as well. The most important regulation is this for us. As you know, COP27 in Scotland was an umbrella where more than 40 countries have come together to solve those joint problems with a focus on sustainability in terms of climate, have tried to bring various documents together. ISSP's mandate was supported by them in this meeting for the first time. But what about public supervision? Why should our role be a significant role? Because financial reporting and our responsibilities are two parts of the same apple. They're complementary to one another, like pieces of a puzzle. You get information from one report, but not only financial reporting, but also sustainability reporting plays a very important role in that process as well. A wider perspective helps us to focus on what kind of an asset is created by a business. Therefore, sustainability reporting is the results. If you look from the perspective of the investor, this actually gives us information in terms of the value of that business enterprise. Public supervision role was making one leg. Financial reports, financial sustainability reporting was already a leg of the same process, but on the right-hand side you see other headings. Due to climate crisis, financial reporting is not enough in establishing the institutional asset and value anymore. Everything is financial, and the word is actually ambiguous, in fact, because the word non-financial is not being used anymore. Sustainability information is the English word or a set of words that is used to explain this these days. Why is ISSB based on a sound foundation? Because we're going to get the standards from IAASB, because the financial reporting was the responsibility of various organizations in the past, but those 54 different reporting frameworks are consolidated in IAASB. GRE is the one that is left aside, but GRE has now signed a memorandum with this organization. So you can see the framework here. Everything has been consolidated into IASB, which means the main goal of the United Nations, as you know, is in the background of all the explanations. On the left-hand side, you see the main game-changing principles. These are fundamental data which should be acknowledged. Well, if you consider the game on a global scale, you will see a couple of influential countries. The first one is the United States. Of course, it has its own way. IFRS has a board, and this board is supported by many countries, including Turkey. EFRAG has many member countries as well. It is one of the pioneer organizations. It's a game changer in the European Union. So these are three important structures which are setting the scene for our field. GRI standards. Why am I supposed to talk about this? Because GRI is the most commonly used reporting scope. If I can go back a little, I can say that in terms of learning the entire subject, in terms of learning how a report has to be written thoroughly, this framework really helps us. You can download it free of charge. It is composed of 3 different standards: global standards, sectoral standards, and thematic standards. Global standards are talking about how a report has to be written and what should be included in the report. Sectoral ones talk about the social and environmental risks of various businesses. And then comes emission. If emission is an important theme for you, you can choose the standard here. It talks about economics and energy. There are 38 different standards there. The most commonly used standard is this one. It has been updated for many times. In January 2023, these standards will be fully enacted, but GRI is left outside, but it is still open to cooperation. It can work in it is working in coordination with IAASP, but it has not been consolidated with IAASP. But still, we have to consider that it has a substantial background. GRI standards are different in the sense that it has a multi-stakeholder perspective while preparing the standards. I will talk about it when I pass on to talking about the European Union perspective, but I think it has a simple and sufficient language when it comes to teaching the entire process. It might be a good instrument for those who would like to look into it. Large businesses in Turkey have mainly used GRI. The Garanti Bank has these standards translated into Turkish as well. Environment is one of the subjects, but what is being reported mainly by the reporting enterprises? CALS and STIC's sustainability reporting policy is something new. There is a web page which talks about this too. They have been analyzing GRI reports since 2004. Climate and greenhouse gas emissions are the most frequently discussed subjects. It is mainly about the climate, but the ones shown with blue are more general subjects on which reportings have taken place. And then comes hazardous substances, wastes, etc. These are all environmental risks which are mentioned in the reports mainly. Of course, sustainability does not only mean the environment. Within the framework of EU standards, I will try to explain why this is so in a few minutes. Okay, as we said, EU is the game changer. On April 21st, a draft has been prepared by them. This is the Corporate Statistical Sustainability Reporting Directive, a non-financial component is not explained very well here. Therefore, they are not using that term anymore. Sustainability information is the term that they are using here instead. What does this one include? It was covering 10,000 businesses, but now it will cover 50,000 businesses in Europe. How can it have an effect on us? There is a compulsory reporting framework. The businesses will have to make their reportings according to this framework. They have to use this. A detailed reporting is a must from now on. And for audit sector, there is a compulsory external audit condition which is set forth. A limited assurance is mentioned here, not only a rational assurance, because a rational one is really difficult to evaluate in such conditions, and public supervision structure is also envisaged by the same document. There is a numerical scope mentioned here. If 40 million is your net return of sales, 20 million is your active asset, if you meet all those criteria, you have to do sustainability reporting. Some companies have to do this directly. The companies which are quoted in the stock exchange are some of those. But there is a separate standard which will be written for the SMEs. There will be a stage transition that is foreseen by the European Union. Now, to understand the standards which might fall under our scope of interest as Turkey, we have to look into the drafts prepared by the European Union. IAASB has two different documents which are being translated into Turkish now, but there is something further to this. The standards will be issued on similar issues, we believe, in the future as well, but here we do not have sectoral standards. In addition, the European Union will be issuing sectoral standards too. And of course, there are manuals which have been published by the European Union as well. TCFD and IAASB are all different from one another in certain terms. Some legislation is compulsory, but there will be general drafts, framework drafts at the end of the day, and these drafts will be guiding the businesses as to how the report has to be written. E1, E2, E3, E4 will be the codes for the subject of environment, for example. There will be different codes for different themes. These are this is our translation, by the way. The content might change afterwards, but social issues are also important when it comes to sustainability. ESRC S1 is for the employees, those taking part in the value chain. I mean, a factory will not be thinking of itself only, but will consider what is going on the side of the customer, the raw material provider as well. The end users and the customers are falling under the scope of the last standards. Regarding the service procurement, Istanbul Stock Exchange has issued a regulation too. There it also talks about the same thing. Different parties in the chain of values are covered. G1 is for governance. Corporate governance is the other name given to that. G talks about how the businesses have to internalize the process and integrate themselves into the process as a whole. ISSB is about it has received the support of COP26, and International Reporting Standards Foundation is the umbrella organization for the sport. So we were having them translated, so this has been a sister board for them. It's going to be an integrated structure where they will co-work. It is like the budget which I've just mentioned. IFRS is the umbrella. Under that, we have sustainability standards and other standards. Sustainability standards and value-creating reporting standards are mentioned here. Sustainability standards are referred to as IFRS S code. The existing standards have the same code as well, but sustainability reports will also be published with the same code, and they will be completed as of January 2023, hopefully. What kind of a general reporting logic do we have in the standards of IISSB? This is a format from another reporting company. One reporting framework has been consolidated under the umbrella of ISSB. The practical frameworks were internalized by the other organizations as well. This is the type of structure that is expected from businesses now. How is governance taking place? How are they managing the process? How they have integrated this to their own work? What kind of a business strategy is formed? What are the criteria and targets? When it comes to those targets, SARSB's sectoral standards will be taken as a foundation. General description standards are what you can see on the right-hand side. These are sector-based requirements, which will be a prerequisite in the future, too. Now, let me talk about the first standards. here the concepts in IFRS are being employed. This is really facilitating for us because for those who are very much used to using TFRSs, this is easier because this is making things more understandable. Governance, strategic risk management, and measurable targets are 4 different headings to follow. The other sustainability description standards will be a guide in this sense. We're going to give all the real data. The reporting time is the same time for preparing the financial statements. The same duration is expected to be given for their preparation. If the financial statements are giving a consolidated table, then a consolidated sustainability reporting will be a prerequisite. European Union is not doing it, but ISSP is giving a free area of maneuver for the users. But what we're planning to do is to adapt ourselves to this in the shortest time possible.
Well, as I told you earlier, there's an assessment of how this can be used for the benefit of the company. The second standard is about climate. I'm not going to go into too much detail because in the upcoming panels, we will have detailed descriptions about this. Well, based on the same concept, the second standard takes into account issues related to climate. And at the end of the standard, we have reporting frameworks referring to the sectoral standards. These are called SARS-B. Well, this is the idea behind this. Up until we come up with a certain standard, you can employ or implement standards from other standard setters. Tomorrow, my head of department, Ms. Birsen, is going to provide a detailed presentation. Assurance audits in 88% of them, GDS 3000 is used, and in 83% of the audits, limited assurance is provided. So this is an assessment of the audits that have been performed so far, and the study is from March 2022. Well, let's have a look at how audit is going to be implemented. GDS 3000, as mentioned by the President earlier, is providing the general framework. 3410 is a standard for greenhouse gas emissions, and there is an implementation guidance for GDS 3000, which is being translated into Turkish now. And the European Union is providing limited assurance, and there are GDSs that are published by IFRS as well. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of sustainability reporting? Well, companies publishing sustainability reports will have global competitive edge, and they will have better access to financing all around the world. In fact, now the donors are being asked where their financing should be used, and the banks mainly look at the reporting from companies actually, and they decide on to what extent their finances can be used for the investments of the relevant organizations. Again, such reporting increases the brand value of organizations. We have good examples from Turkey, like Arçelik. I'm sure this is a well-known example. It's shown as a best practice in other countries as well. And again, reporting also fulfills the expectations of stakeholders. Consumers do not only want to purchase goods, they also have a look at the sustainability reporting of companies to feel that they're doing something good for the society. Environmental standards are becoming commonly used all around the world and in all sectors actually. So having a good brand value about it gives companies a good competitive edge. But of course there will be disadvantages as well. For instance, there will be some limitations to exports. I'd like to touch upon something what we call accountability reports in Turkey, because both financial statements and reporting will continue in this process, and they will become a part of the integrated reporting of IFRS. So integrated reporting is not only limited to sustainability, but also provides an insight to the stakeholders of that company about how that company is performing. You can download the guidance. There is this association in Turkey called ERTA. They've dedicated themselves to this issue. They have good reading material. And Borsa Istanbul is also giving us good information about this. So at the long run, there will be integrated reporting. And this is what we understand from the approaches of the standard setters, actually. So some companies in Turkey have already started publishing these accountability reports or integrated reports. And the content of this report will be a standard one. For instance, it will include the business model, how the company is creating a value, the strategy of the company should be explained, the resources and how they're used, risks related to the climate, environment should be included as well, external environment should be described, and of course, financial performance and financial situation of the company should be described in this report as well. So we will have a single report from now on, in the long run, of course. There is a distinction between the European Union and ISSB. European Union is using the term double materiality, but ISSB is not talking about it, right? Because double materiality should also take into account the effects of the company. But single materiality only looks at the functions of that company or the inputs to that company. So European Union is more inclined to double materiality. Therefore, we have to provide more information when reporting to the European Union. But of course, since this is a debated issue, we should wait and see. But of course, the company should not be only providing information about how it is being affected, but it should also provide information about how it affects the rest of the world or its environment. So let's talk about our authority as the organization. In June, the following paragraph was added to Article 88 of the Turkish Commercial Law, and the Parliament gave us the authority to draft this article. Public Oversight, Accounting and Audit Standards Authority has the right to develop sustainable reporting standards for Turkey in line with international standards, and the board is authorized to publish those standards. Capital Markets Board, Banking Board, the insurance sector, the capital market sector, banking sector are the areas that were authorized to develop these standards. And all the institutions and boards that are established to supervise and audit these areas can come up with additional legislation or additional explanations or descriptions about these fields. So this is our authority, and whenever we develop standards, we also provide further explanation about how these standards are going to be used. Therefore, we will do the same for the ISBS standards as well. So the next steps to be taken, what's waiting for you in a concrete manner. First, let's have a look at the environment. We are going to publish the sustainability reporting standards. We are going to develop the implementation scope. We're going to explain which companies are going to be within the scope of this reporting exercise. Of course, we will do that in coordination with the relevant public authority. And then we are going to publish the assurance audit standards. The scope will be identified by the relevant body. The auditees will be also listed. This will be a very comprehensive auditing. And then there will be training and skill building. We will develop standards for those who are going to perform the audits. And there will be assurance auditing, undertaking of the contracts, sustainability audits of authorized independent organizations, and management of reporting. And finally, we will have oversight. In fact, this table clearly shows us what concrete steps are going to be taken by us. So you're all welcome to join us in this process and provide your views about this. I'd like to take a further step. In fact, I'm showing the slide at the last intentionally, because there's this stage, what we call digital taxonomy. So these reports will not be published as PDFs. They will be published in a way to be used by algorithmic softwares, actually. The European Union is developing its own taxonomy. ISSB also published a standard, a draft for their own taxonomy as well. So rating agencies, credit agencies, and other agencies which are interested in comparing the data will not scan the reports one by one, but they will have a software extracting the right information from the report. To be able to do so, data in all the reports should be tagged. And of course, this will enable the reports to be used at international level as well. And the more detailed we do the tagging, the better uses the reports will serve, actually. Tagging should be, can be regional. For instance, think of a cement company having plants in 5 different regions. You do the tagging in such a way that you can get the exact information from any of the plants. And of course, the information can be comparable as well. I believe that taxonomy is a very important stage for ease of use, actually. It will provide great facilities for the parties and readers. Sustainability is a very vast topic, and many stakeholders are paying attention to this. Everyone's interested in reading those reports. Therefore, the digital taxonomy is an important step to be taken for the readability of those reports. Well, thank you very much for your interest and for listening to me. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Shirin. You gave us a good insight about how this process began and how it is going in Turkey and in the region. You've also talked about your insight about the future developments. So you are all invited to have a look at those developments. Even though we're not going to implement them overnight, one day we will have to use them. Therefore, it's better to know about them at an earlier stage. We still need further knowledge and experience about the European Union standards and international standards. So to develop ourselves and to rebuild our skills, we have to be in touch with the professional organization. And as TÜRMOP, we are in the right position to give you accurate information about this process, and hopefully in the future we will be in better communication with you. As professional accountants, we are subjected to certain standards, ethic codes, and codes of conduct. I now would like to invite you to watch the video of Gabriela Diaz. She is the head of International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants.
The 21st Turkish Accountancy Congress. My name is Gabriela Figueiredo Dias, and I am the chair of the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, or the IESBA for short. I am honored to join you all today, albeit by video, to share my views on two critically important topics that I believe matter to all of you as professional accountants, but also as citizens: ethics and sustainability. But before digging into those concepts and the value they provide, let me tell you a few words about the board I chair and its most relevant output, which is the IESBA Code of Ethics. IESBA is an independent standard-setting body that was established in 2006 to serve the public interest by setting high-quality ethics standards for professional accountants. The IESBA Code provides a robust and comprehensive set of standards aimed at equipping all professional accountants with an ethics and independence baseline to ensure high-quality reporting and assurance. The IESBA Code has been translated into over 40 languages and is currently being used in over 130 different jurisdictions globally, including in Turkey, and by the 32 largest international networks of accounting firms for transnational audits. At the IESBA, we have watched as the demand for timely, accurate, and relevant sustainability information has increased dramatically in recent years. As society becomes more aware of the public interest significance of this information, expectations for companies and organizations to operate more sustainably have increased dramatically. The rapid and pervasive growth of sustainability goals, framed by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, has been pushing this agenda. We are now operating in a time where sustainability-related information is increasingly being used to inform business and investing decisions, including capital asset allocations and consumer spending. Within organizations, while also positively impacting society and the public. What are their responsibilities as corporate citizens on matters such as the Earth's resources or social issues? Against the urgency of a dramatic political, economic, and social shift towards sustainability and the inexorable objectives set up by the United Nations 2030 Agenda, all organizations, professionals, and citizens are being called to contribute to the timely accomplishment of such objectives. We are all responsible to contribute to restoring trust in business and the financial system, which is the most central condition for economic development and social well-being. However, you collectively, the professional accountants, play an even more unique role in this transition to a more sustainable society. Because this transition will not happen unless sustainability becomes a core element of business and financial decisions. And critical business and financial decisions rely upon high-quality reporting and assurance. And this is where sustainability and ethics in accountancy cross. Ethics standards and values like integrity, independent mindset, objectivity, competence, skepticism, and independence are crucial to ensure high-quality financial reporting and assurance. But they are even more crucial to ensure equivalent high-quality sustainability reporting and assurance. In fact, sustainability information is often less objective and more forward-looking, and it includes a more extensive narrative component and the use of information throughout the issuer's value chain. For sustainability reporting to meet society's needs, the infrastructure that supports sustainability reporting and assurance must be underpinned by high standards of ethical behavior and independence. The accountancy profession, your profession, is rooted in, but also a driver of, public trust through global adoption and implementation of the IESBA Code. So what is the IESBA doing about all of this? We are committed to adjusting and developing the necessary standards to ensure that the existing globally operable ethics and independence framework applied in reporting and providing assurance on financial information remains relevant and fit for purpose for sustainability reporting and assurance. We are currently actively engaged in extensive fact-finding and outreach efforts to better understand the critical and emerging issues in sustainability reporting and assurance, and our intention is to have a project plan in place by the end of this year, with standard setting work commencing soon after. We are coordinating with organizations like IOSCO, the ISSP, and the Financial Stability Board, who in its last progress report on climate change identified us, the IESVA, as the standard setter that should provide the ethics standards in the sustainability space. We are committed to a harmonized approach that minimizes the risks of fragmentation in standards. Together with those other standard setters, including the IAASP, we are aiming at ensuring that coherent, mutually reinforcing building blocks of sustainability reporting, assurance, and ethics standards can be put in place around the same time to support the necessary regulatory infrastructure for sustainability reporting. We understand that stakeholder expectations are extremely high, and at IESVA, we are determined and well-positioned to take the necessary actions to meet the market needs. I encourage all of you to follow our work by visiting our website or following our social channels like LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. You are also welcome to observe our public meetings virtually or submit a comment letter in response to our exposure drafts and other consultation materials. Thank you again for the opportunity to participate today. It is truly an honor to speak to all of you, and I hope your meetings are productive.
Well, I would like to thank Gabriela for allocating her time to us and sharing her views with us. As mentioned by Gabriela, independence and codes of ethics are very important for providing assurance about things from past times, but when it comes to providing viewpoints about the future, again, the insight and experience of accountants are even more important. Gabriela talked about two important things. Consumers are watching not only the individual sustainability of their investments, but also the social impacts of their investments as well. Therefore, they would like to purchase goods and services from reliable companies. She also mentioned the importance of the capital markets. Today we have the Capital Markets Board representative, Ms. Seçil Sayın Kutluca, among us. So she will be talking about the role of the Capital Markets Board in terms of sustainability, how they are guiding the investors, and their approach about sustainability. So the floor is yours, ma'am. Thank you, Ayşe. First of all, I'd like to thank Turmo for organizing this event and for inviting us. And I hope that discussions of these 2 days will be beneficial for the professional group of accountants. Sustainability is a concept which is based on 3 topics: environment, social, and governance. And indicators about these 3 pillars are intertwined. They're talking to each other. It's a new concept, actually, which requires a new approach as well. Therefore, this is a very challenging issue to understand, to act on, and to develop regulations on. This issue, sustainability, is not limited to the public sector only. It requires joint efforts from all stakeholders, including the government, academia, and NGOs. And this is a very hot topic of the global agenda. In all areas of the financial markets, including accounting, we have this traditional financial-based approach or digital-based approach. And including environment and social issues to this monetary world is a new and recent concept, actually. GDP figures or growth rate are the things which the companies report on financial terms, actually. This is the order that we've known for many years. But recently, as we all have noticed, the companies are more focusing on their purpose now. So can companies survive just by focusing on their profits? Does having a short-term approach help the companies, or should they have long-term approaches for sustainability? And for instance, capitalism is being debated. There's a new concept called stakeholder capitalism. And in this new approach, there are also new business models. We have the indicators of the World Economic Forum, for instance, and we have new value-based financial data sets. These are the new models that are being used by standard setters or regulators and companies as well. So these are the topics at the level of enterprises or businesses. So how are they reflected on the overall capital markets? By the way, when it comes to sustainability, the role of capital markets is standing out in comparison with the other boards, actually, or other parts of the financial market. As we know, with the climate crisis, there's a global consensus now, which is the Paris Climate Change Agreement. The Paris Agreement has a receipt to solve the climate crisis. It is to transition to low-carbon economy. Of course, transition to a low-carbon economy requires huge investments from the government and from the private sector as well. According to the Paris Agreement, the investments to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions should be mobilized both from the capital markets and from the financial markets as well. Therefore, regulators, policymakers, and standard setters should take this message. Back in 2015, when Paris Agreement was being discussed, the financial institutions were involved in those discussions as well. For instance, we have the green bond markets or blue bonds. There's a social leasing agreement. These are the new and innovative financial tools which can contribute to the efforts of mitigating climate change. And there are new services to label those services or to certify certain stages. We've heard of new verification models or new companies providing these services. And of course, the companies are faced with new challenges as well. There are new and responsible ways of making investments. So for the capital markets, these are so many new steps, actually. Therefore, we're talking about a reform on a sustainability architecture. I'd like to talk about the differentiating factor of these new agendas, actually. So we have international standards-based approaches. I mentioned green bonds, for instance. The standards of the international capital markets is now the binding standard. It's not only international, but it is also a market-based mechanism for the better functioning of the markets. Just after that, since 2016 and maybe 2017, the public sector has been developing itself as well. The European Union has been developing certain policies for sustainable finances. They had been working on this before, but recently they've set an impetus on this process. And in the public sector, the reforms are being developed, and certain public authorities are taking important steps now. So greening the financial sector is the concept behind this. The first step is to develop sustainable financial markets or capital markets, and the second important component of this process is risk management. So what do we do as the capital markets board, or what kind of steps can we take further? What are the climate policies of our country, and how we can contribute to this are the topics that I'm going to refer to in a couple of minutes. But before that, let me emphasize the challenges which the public sector is facing. For instance, all these efforts require capacity building, skill building. Policies and incentives should be in compliance with one another. And of course, this requires an integrated and coordinated approach from the public side as well. In 2020, the government of Turkey started to pay more attention to harmonizing those steps. Well, it is difficult for the public sector to take the initiative, but of course we should not ignore their contribution. So when we think at the level of enterprises, for a company to survive, it has to have access to finances, it has to have a legal background, and a company should also be supported by a good regulation mechanism. For a company to develop long-term strategies and sustainability targets, there should be direction from the public sector. So let's have a look at Turkey. In 2021, the Turkish parliament ratified the Paris Agreement, and Turkey has committed to net zero emissions by 2053. Of course, this will be very influential, not only for the financial sector, but for the other sectors as well. So there will be huge transformations from now on with these targets and commissions. And this year, we are going to identify our NDC for the greenhouse gas emissions. So the process is going forward, and it is somehow generating some impacts. As the Capital Markets Board, we also have certain impacts on the climate change issues or discussions in Turkey. In 2003, we started to encourage companies listed in the stock exchange to start developing corporate sustainability targets and goals. In fact, this is the basis of the new investment chain. Companies should be able to perform certain mechanisms and should be able to show their actions about the environment, about sustainability, and of course they have to prove that they have the necessary infrastructure. So back in 2003, we published a communique, and right after that we had certain steps to update the standards. We made certain provisions compulsory. For the Stock Exchange of Istanbul, we came up with certain indices like the Sustainability Index, Corporate Management Index. So we started setting the stage for the companies listed in the stock exchange. We now require them to have certain knowledge about this, and we've been watching the process so far, and the companies are doing well. The reason why I'm working about sustainability is because back in the years 2002 and 2003, I was part of that process, and I had my education on sustainability as well. That's why I'm now interested in these topics.
In the second pillar, we have sustainability principles, harmonization framework. And the businesses in Turkey definitely have to have this included in the framework. In the middle of the pandemic, in October 2020, a new reporting prerequisite was set forth, stipulated for the companies, businesses enlisted in the stock markets. We keep focusing on this in our trainings. These issues were on the agenda of our businesses because we have multinational companies on a world scale. They were experienced on those, but public adopting this term of sustainability for the first time has become an important step taken here in Turkey. It was mentioned for the first time in Turkey. This is the reason why such strategies were demanded, was understood much better. And also coming up with provisions or the reasons for explaining the data on greenhouse gas emission have become important for the first time. This is the reason why under Istanbul Stock Exchange we now have a common work of many companies enlisted. And within the framework of the standards coming after COP26, there will be a series of harmonizations, and all these matters will turn into responsibilities, and that is one of the most important agendas that we have as the board. This is the reporting side of it. And the third important step taken by our board is that this year, January, we explained green bond, let's say, or lease contracts, new instruments, commercial instruments. While these are being introduced into the market, there has to be a clear information given to the investors, the effects, explanation, the funds, and also green projects, the bonds or bills being allocated to green projects is the essence of this novel product. This novel product has found its place in the new regulation, and it has been introduced into the financial markets in Turkey. Other than this type of a regulation, we have similar introductions into the market as well, because as of 2016, Turkish Industrial Bank and other banks in Turkey were introducing such instruments to the businesses in Turkey anyways. Therefore, this has become a preparation process for us, and we attached importance to dialogue with our stakeholders and cooperated with international organizations and have taken this step bravely. And we had a 3-day preparation program workshop together with the World Bank from the finance office of the presidency and central bank and regulatory board for banking and inspection. We consulted with all of them and came up with an important guide. We cooperated with EBRD too. All important and large corporate investors were included in this process, and organizations giving opinions on issues like sustainability were also invited to this meeting. Such promotion activities have been realized by our board. In essence, the Capital Markets Board will contribute to this ecosystem, but how will this contribution take place? An institutional strategy, a corporate strategy had to be identified with a certain calendar to describe this clearly. The reporting systems had to be in line with ISSB. Maybe I should not call it reporting systems. I should call it voluntary reporting provision, rule. and of course, renewing this is really important because it brings certain responsibilities on the shoulders of the investors. Performance analysis, portfolio preparation processes have to be transparent as well. Responsible investment rules is what everything is focusing on in essence. And the second party opinion and confirmation of fund using and limited assurance process and the activities within the framework of this process, the companies which are eligible for carrying out such activities were all subject matters of this green bond. And these issues have all followed one another in the chain of investment. So as a new development, there is one other thing that we have. Debt instruments are making up an important part of this bill, but an ISCO, that is International Securities Authority, a report has been issued. This is a recent report. This report talks about individual investors, but individual investors training about sustainable finance and sustainable financial literacy are addressed in this process. Therefore, the scope of the issue has become larger. So under the light of all these recent developments that have taken place, I can say that we've made our contributions as the board, and we're still following the international activities performed closely.
Seçil Hanım, çok teşekkür ediyorum. Siz
Thank you very much. As you were speaking, I remembered something. Maybe green literacy will be the next area to focus on in the near future, because many subjects that you and Mehmet Bey have focused on are actually including many new concepts, although even we are dealing with this matter for a very long time. The investors will be and the users will be faced with new terminology. Maybe we should be focusing on this too. Capital markets and financial markets and sustainability regulations, their main principles, and international compliance, green markets development, and also the risks and management of those risks as those markets are emerging were discussed by our speaker. The public role of the Capital Markets Board is really important, and she talked about how this structure came into being. In both of those speeches, we heard about the regulatory role of the public, but public, that is the government, is also a very important actor, because the economic activities of the government and their effects on the financial markets are also affected by the concept of sustainability. Now, international public accountancy will be discussed right now. IPSASB President Ian Carruthers will be the next speaker now. Microphone is yours, sir.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chair of the International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board, or IPSASB. Thank you for asking me to join you today, even if only virtually. I'm delighted to be able to share with you the thinking behind IPSASB's pivotal global consultation on advancing public sector sustainability reporting. Over the next few minutes, let me take you through the background to the consultation, the expanded role we see for the IPSASB, and how we propose to move guidance development forward quickly, provided that we receive the additional support that we need to do this successfully. Governments can have a huge impact on sustainability. To give you some idea of their significance, on average across OECD countries, government expenditure accounts for over 40% of gross domestic product. The public sector employs around 20% of the global workforce, and sovereign bonds make up almost 40% of the $100 trillion global bond market. So it matters how and where governments spend the money they raise through the taxes that we all pay. How they focus their activities will certainly be critical to the successful delivery of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and to meeting the climate change targets that are so important to all of us. Recent developments in the private sector, in particular the IFRS Foundation's establishment of the International Sustainability Standards Board, the ISSB, have helped bring us here by highlighting the urgent need for a comprehensive global baseline for sustainability reporting disclosures in order to drive consistency and comparability. While the same increasing expectations undoubtedly exist in the public sector, we at IPSASB know from our own work that simply addressing reporting issues from a private sector perspective can leave significant gaps because of differences in focus and coverage. So the public sector will need its own sustainability reporting guidance, and there is a need for an organisation to take the lead in developing that guidance. As the only international standard setting board focused on public sector reporting, the IPSASB believes it is that organisation. The consultation paper we released in May sets out our proposals for tackling this critical work effectively and efficiently by working with others and building on our 25 years of standard setting experience. Sustainability reporting potentially covers a huge range of environmental, social and governance topics. All are individually important, but if we take on this additional role, we will need to focus our work on the most urgent topics for the public sector and to get started as soon as possible. We believe that the best way to meet these twin objectives will be to draw on the initial outputs from the ISSB to provide overarching general sustainability disclosure guidance for the public sector, as well as guidance on climate-related disclosures. In parallel with moving at an accelerated pace in these two areas, we would develop detailed plans for progressively covering the other most important topics and consult on these proposals during 2023. Taking on the development of sustainability reporting standards for the public sector would not be a small undertaking, and the IPSASB already has a full financial reporting standards development programme. Combining these two activities without slippage in our current work would therefore be challenging. It would require new sources of advice, deft management of board and staff resources, and additional finance. This is where we have asked for help from all our stakeholders. We need you to tell us whether you agree with our proposals, or if not, how should we change them? We also need to know which sustainability reporting topics are most pressing in your jurisdiction. To allow us to move forward quickly, we have asked for comments on our consultation paper by September 9th. This is a major strategic issue, and we need as much input as possible. The consultation paper is still open, so please do take the opportunity, if you haven't already, to comment on the important strategic issues that it addresses. To conclude, addressing climate change and delivering sustainable development are complex challenges that will impact on all of us. Equipping the public sector with the right guidance to be transparent about its activities and to take better informed decisions will be critical to eventual success. We at the IPSASB appreciate how much hard work has gone into implementing our financial reporting standards in your jurisdiction and hope that in future we can work together to enable the public sector to play its full part in delivering a sustainable future for us all. Thank you for your attention. On behalf of all my colleagues at IPSASB, I wish you all the best for a very successful conference.
Ayn'a çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Ayn, thank you very much. As Ayn has mentioned, International Public Sector Accounting Standards Board has other activities going on, and as they experience as per their experience, if the public standards are not included in the process, there is a huge gap always. Therefore, he has a call. Let me repeat that call once again. Public sector sustainability reporting has to be developed, and in order to develop this, there will be a consultation report, and it will be concluded as of May 6th. So all stakeholders are invited to express their own opinions on this. So is Turkey, of course. Accountancy, as it is the case in all other professions, has an organizational supporting role, an organization to play a pivotal role, and TÜRMOP is that organization. And TÜRMOP now has a permanent webpage which talks about all these activities, and this has been an important step towards our goal of improving ourselves. And sustainability will now be tackled by TÜRMOP. Mr. Masum Türker, the member of governing board of TÜRMOP, will now be our next speaker to tackle this subject.
AYFAK'ın, Avrupa Muhasebeciler Birliği'nin
distinguished representatives from various international organizations, from IFAC, Accountancy Europe, Edinburgh Group, FCM, and I would like to extend my thanks to all the representatives from Turkey, and I would like to extend my thanks and regards to all our colleagues from Turkey. I would like to start with a little bit history, if you would allow me. For the accountants working in Turkey, sustainability is actually not a new word. Sustainability affected a very important term. Single order, uniform accounting system was published in the official gazette for the first time in 1970s, and that was actually talking about sustainability, and it was giving us an explanation of the responsibilities of the accountants in Turkey, and that was the first time when Turkey got acquainted with sustainability. Kemal Tosun, a professor of public administration, was also taken as a basis, because in his article he talked about various groups of people expecting interests and benefits from the enterprises. In 1975, the World Congress in Australia was translated. The outcome of that Congress was translated into Turkish by the Eskişehir University. My young assistant friends have made the translation then, and for the first time there, an information system term was used for accountants. In accountancy, this was something new until 1984. Friedman's stakeholder theory was discussed, but for the first time, Turkey was involved in a process as such. The 12th Turkish Accountancy Congress in 1976 was the time when this was referred to for the first time under the heading of the basic responsibilities of accountants in Turkey. Oktay Güvenli, who was working in Koç Holding then, had made a presentation on the responsibilities of the accountants in preserving the resources and the responsibility of the accountants in forming national revenues and responsibilities of the accountants in safeguarding the rights of the consumers, etc. These issues and subjects were all tackled there. In 1978, there was a seminar where activity reports were shared with others. And for the first time, there was this table of additional value, added value. Professor Kemal Tosun's theory of groups expecting an interest from the enterprises was actually mentioned for the first time there, because in order for a business to continue, you have to know how you're going to pay your employees. And this was actually a study that was designed for that purpose. And in the Faculty of Management, for the first time, this subject was taught between 81 and 84 under the name of a Code of Conduct. And TURMOP has a publication which is about the terms and conditions of work. And among the responsibilities mentioned in the first chapter of this, we have a separate part about social responsibilities. There are responsibilities towards the customers, towards the clients, towards the society, and towards the colleagues. And these are all tackled there. Sustainability, when you look back in the history of the world, you can see was mentioned for the first time in 1913. In 1912, the British economist and industrialist Arthur Cephilipigio has made a statement and said that the welfare economy has to be in a certain way. The welfare economy is actually tackling three components. One is nature, the materials produced by people, and knowledge by human resources. This was mentioned in 1912 for the first time. It turned into a book in 1920 then, and then it started to be discussed. Maybe late Kemal Tosun, while talking about those social groups, was actually affected by this concept of welfare economy. But in 1968, the most important work was performed. It was a work initiated in Italy. An industrialist and an economist, an Italian doctor, Aurelio Pissi, has brought scientists from 10 different countries together to discuss how the environment is affected by the societies. And the basic outcome was that while fulfilling the needs of today's generation, then we should be acting in such a way that we do not give any harm to the resources of the upcoming generations. Well, this is the mentality that lies beneath sustainability. For accountancy companies, for accountancy organizations, sustainability means something else. And this is really important. What kind of steps will be taken by TURMOP will be the subject of the rest of my presentation now. In 1989, sustainability became a subject for the entire world. Various reports have started to be issued following that, but the then accountants, which includes me as well, discussed this in a different way, because we first issued this report on economic growth. Italian economists, as I told you before, brought people together and issued this book in 1972. And in 1978, Turkey had this book translated into Turkish. We all focused on the content of this book and started discussing sustainability. The same year, picking up on this book, another book was published with the name of Mankind at a Turning Point. I brought these books with me. Why? Because the Public Oversight Board has tackled this subject and dated and started all the discussions from 1968 without taking into account what has been done in 1912 or 13. Why are these books so important? Why am I sharing them with you? Because sustainability is being tackled with different dimensions. We always talk about developments, our country, etc., but it's not always the case. Professor Cemal Yükselen, the board of our governing board in TÜRSAP, is mainly focusing on marketing and has read a book on sustainability. And again, our audit board member, Metin Yalçır, had a thesis about sustainability in development. It's a recently written book, and many of the professors who are here today have actually worked on the issue of sustainability. They all have their own thesis. They have written their own books. Turkey has actually fixed the theoretical side of the subject, but Turkey has to pass on to the practical side of it. How can we do this? Sustainability. How should sustainability be on the basis of a nation? What kind of sustainability should we see from the perspective of the businesses? We heard the explanations of the capital markets a few minutes ago, so you can understand the other question is that how should sustainability be tackled by businesses, by the stock exchanges? That's the other thing. What about the SMEs? But IFAC has 2 million members, and TÜRMOP in Turkey has many members, and all these members are actually, that is the majority of them are from SMEs, so we have to know what sustainability means for the SMEs. Sustainability is actually in 3 different areas. First, in the field of production. In order for the production to take place, what kind of actions should we take? Secondly, what about sustainability in marketing? Because, as you know, marketing is an area of conflicts. Marketing professor Kokler has dealt with this subject as a separate heading of chaos management. But thirdly, there is another subject which is of interest to us, the accountants. How can we ensure a sustainability in the field of procurement? How can we talk about a financial sustainability? And the financial requirements of the businesses and their sustainability is important to us because, as you know, all explanations, statements made by the government are actually focusing on this, but they're going to be faced with a hindrance. The president of Adana Chamber of Industry has touched upon this in his speech during the inauguration speeches, because being in line with the principles when it comes to getting loans from the banks will be an important problematic area. The second important issue is sustainability among employees. We should not only consider white-collared employees, the workers are also important. This morning there was a special news on TV which said that kebab restaurants are having difficulty in finding new chefs. Consider big restaurants and other places having no one to cook for them. And sustainability in materials and raw materials is the other important subject. Cereals coming from Ukraine are falling short these days. Therefore, there is a lack of supply. All these matters are actually falling under the scope of interest of our accountants here in Turkey. And a workshop is being organized And if accountancy representatives are not there in that workshop, the decision made is only an order in the form of an order. Because if TURMOP is not there, that regulation will be falling short. The accountancy as a profession has a very important problem, and that problem is that public regulators are not consulting the real professionals, and they are not including them within the system. The member of our governing board has written a book. Some of our other members have written theses, as I mentioned before, and I've mentioned these on purpose because people are involved in such work, and that work has to be taken into consideration. So, first thing we can say that probably after this Congress, TURMOP, after our General Assembly in October, will come up with a new strategy about sustainability. And in the emergence of that sustainability, all the discussions held here will play an important role. What kind of a strategy should we form? And one of the important prerequisites for TURMOP is actually the establishment of a sustainability center. We inevitably will have to set up that center because non-financial statements is an area under which we have to discuss things in consensus with the environment, the society, etc. Is there goodwill on the side of TURMOP on this? Yes, of course. Ayşe Hanım just talked about the web page formed by TURMOP and said that everything is being followed.
Sürdürülebilir merkezinin yapması.
So there are things which have to be done by TURMOP, and that work is now being designed under the framework of the previous work conducted by the international organizations. If you're interested in this, if you would like to see our web page, you will be able to see what I mean. Thompson from the European Union in the morning talked about something very important. This morning, he talked about the Directive of the European Union. On our webpage, you can see its interpretation and all the details mentioned under it. And you can see various opinions, the stance of the firms on all those matters. I have a file here, and in that file, you can see different publications from abroad adopted into our country. So as a result of this, of course, we will come up with something unique, which is specific to Turkey. That's the biggest problem that we have in Turkey. The problem is that our public organizations always adapt themselves to the translation, the written translation of the documents prepared outside. But maybe we can be the leaders. Why not? Why not? Why can't we relay our own knowledge to the other countries? In the Turkish Stock Exchange, more than 35 businesses are being followed in terms of sustainability indices. These are actually law businesses, as they're named abroad, because it's not only about profits, but also about what they are contributing in terms of social life and the environment in Europe. We were discussing this in the governing board of TURMOP some time ago, and we came up with our first decision, and that decision was not to have any salt in TURMOP's restaurants. It was about sustainability. It was about the protection of the health of our employees. That was the first decision that we made, because everybody thinks that sustainability of petroleum and resources are important, but don't forget, human factor also needs to be protected and sustained. So regarding businesses and sustainability, we can say that the most important thing is that the cash provision should not be discontinued, because if that happens, there will be bankruptcy, and that business may have to find itself in an unexpected position. How is Turkey addressing this? How did TÜRMOP address this up until now? In 1993, the Ministry of Environment was founded in Turkey. It was only after 3 years, and the issue was the provision of plastic bottles of water or gases, drinks. As you know, you have to pay a provision allotment to the Ministry of Environment for doing this. A company received incentive from the ministry to collect those bottles, and they said that they would do a ceiling cover from that, ceiling isolation from that. But they were buying the bottles from the companies in return for some money and pressing them. But we wondered how we would be able to get rid of this practice. And we had a meeting in TÜRMOP and said that there was a way for getting rid of this problem. And we said that the oversight of, or the supervision of those bottles could be given to TÜRMOP. There were people from the private sector in that meeting too. I was there too, and the environmentalist organizations suddenly stopped this practice. Why? Because if the accountants, professional accountants, would be doing this, would be in charge of supervision, then things would be really different. Therefore, the only responsibility of the accountancy is not reporting and counting things. The accountancy should be in charge of observing whether the principles of sustainability are met or not. With that amendment to the Commercial Code of Turkey, there are new standards in terms of sustainability, but for the existing situation, the sustainability oversight provisions should be in line with our work and in compliance with our mentalities. Masum Bey, I'm sorry, we have to end before it's too late. I was watching my time as well. So what kind of a position, what kind of a stance should we have? The accountancy companies should do one thing when it comes to sustainability. On the web page of TÜRMOP, you can find something. There's a book translated from IFAC. It's the 5th edition, in fact. Since the 1st edition, TÜRMOP has been following this. And there it talks about the growth of an accountancy company and the criteria to be taken account during growth. They're all included under the concept of sustainability. After page 190, the book completely talks about sustainability. The heading there is sustainability, and that actually is about how a founder of an accountancy company can grow his business. Distinguished guests, in fact, there is one last sentence to discuss. Should we grow? Should we chase after welfare? Or should we correct the quality of our growth, considering the upcoming potential generations? TURMOP, as an organization that serves the profession and that serves its clients, will definitely grow, but will make sure that the regulatory organizations include TURMOP in all their activities. Those who have done this, those who have included TURMOP in such processes have always become more successful. Between 1993 and 1998, whenever a legislation was being prepared in Turkey, one representative from TURMOP was always involved in the process. And when the presidents of TURMOP were having their own meetings among themselves, they were discussing these things at length. Of course, we shouldn't forget that any activity which is not extending down to the origins cannot be successful. So I hope that your heritage will also be like our heritage in the future as well.
Masum Bey'e çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Bugün burada
Thank you very much, Mr. Türker. Today, we understood that our profession encompasses a lot of dimensions, including the social dimension, environment, and governance. So in order to fulfill our responsibilities, the national and international organizations are doing their best. We are ready in terms of standards and regulations, and in terms of implementation, we will be ready very soon as well, because these issues are becoming very urgent now. We tried to discuss these topics in detail in this panel, and our discussions will continue in the upcoming panels as well. And this Congress is going to serve as a good opportunity for all of us to exchange ideas, opinions, and experiences for the future. I'd like to thank our panelists for speaking to us from the podium, for sending their videos. I also would like to thank all the international organizations for cooperating with us, for supporting us in this process. Now it is time for a coffee break, and then we will divide to parallel sessions. Thank you very much again for your interest and for your participation. Well, on behalf of the organization, we would like to invite the panelists and the moderator to the stage. We'd like to present them the certificates. I'd like to invite the chairman of Konya Accountants Chamber.
Sayın Seçil Sayın Kutluca'ya belgesini takdim etmek üzere Kocaeli Serbest Muhasebeci Mali Müşavirler Odası Başkanı Sayın Özcan Çakır'ı sahneye davet ediyoruz. Sayın Mehmet Şirin'in belgesini takdim etmek üzere Samsun Serbest Muhasebeci Mali Müşavirler Odası Başkanı Sayın Dilaver Öğütçü'yü sahneye davet ediyoruz. Sayın Doktor Masum Türker'e belgesini takdim etmek üzere Muğla Serbest Muhasebeci Mali Müşavirler Odası Başkanı Sayın Servet Evran'ı sahneye davet ediyoruz. Ana oturum kapanışı için fotoğrafa bekliyoruz. Saygıdeğer konuklar, saat 16-16:30 arası kahve molasıdır.
So it's time for the coffee break now. After 4:30, we will have a parallel session on corporate sustainability. In this very hall, another parallel session for the social benefit of accountancy services under the moderation of Professor Nuran Cömert in Beylerbeyi Hall, and another parallel session on accountancy services social benefit under the moderation of Serdar Özkur in Emirgan 1 room, and finally parallel session on environmental, social and governance sustainability, situation analysis and reporting. Professor Fatih Dalkılıç will be the moderator of that session, and the session will take place in Emirgan 2. These are the parallel sessions.